You're listening to the Patriot Nation podcast.
Hi, welcome to another edition of the Patriot Nation podcast, of course, brought to you by Prize Picks, which is the official daily fantasy sports app of CLNS Media, and Game Time, which is the official ticketing app of CLNS Media. It's your boy Pat Lane here, as always, with my guy Matt St. Jean. And as always, we're a little bit late for our show today. But there's a reason why we're late today. I am actually a little bit late coming back from a Taunton softball playoff game. Taunton softball with another dub, another big win against Newton North today. Still remaining undefeated, and they have a game Saturday night, and then there's 3 more until the state championship. So we'll see what happens. They've won 3 in a row, trying to make it 4. Just an absolute powerhouse down in Taunton. And I got to give a shout out to senior captain Sam Lincoln. Let me tell you this right now. She's a pitcher. She has pitched. She's been the starting pitcher for 2 years. Mm-hmm. Okay, they play about 20 games a year, roughly. She's been the starting pitcher for 2 years. She, tonight, threw her 500th career strikeout.
Oh, my God. That's wild.
Yeah. So she's averaging over 10 strikeouts a game, pretty much.
That's domination.
It's completely insane. Completely insane. I think she has 3 or 4 perfect games this year. 3 or 4 like other games where she gave up 1 hit. I think they had 1 hit tonight. They ended up scoring a run, but the run that they scored was on like a hit where the girl got thrown out, but the girl had scored before she got thrown out, and so it ended the inning. But like, and if you check the instant replay, maybe it wouldn't have. But it was like whatever, just give it.
It's a bang play.
Yeah. Right. So, but yeah. So, anyways. So that was that. So we had that, and then Nora just loves to go. She's like all into softball, loves being down there, and loves to be there. So it's fun. We have a good time. So yeah. So there's that. So I would support in high school. It's my high school. I teach there, but I would support in high school sports, which is always fun. So every now and again, you see those. A few years ago. Dietrich Wise and Jelani Tavai were at a Patriots game. We're at a Taunton Heights football game, which was kind of cool. There was another Patriots player at a football game last year, so they do try to get out to the high school football games, which is pretty cool. So, anyways, on to football. The Patriots are continuing with OTAs, and Matt, I think the biggest development of this latest media availability day is the second quarterback going through all the drills is no longer Bailey Zappe. I think that's the biggest story right now.
Yeah, I mean, we saw, I thought it was interesting that before the practice, I think it was Maye said something along the lines of, there's no depth chart here. We're mixing it up. Everybody's where they are. And you go out there and because that kind of felt like the standard the whole time of like, yeah, Maye was technically quarterback 3, but not really. He happened to be going 3rd in the order.
Right.
But when you see him make that jump to 2nd, your eyebrows raised in a good way. Mm-hmm. That's all right. He's progressing. They're asking him to do a little bit more. They're asking him to go a little bit earlier. And I'm going to guess this is a function of, all right, at first they wanted him to sit behind the 2 guys in the reps. So he got to watch people do it a bunch before he had to step into some of this stuff, and he had a good example. Now they have a lot more confidence in him, having him seen everything. They've had him go through stuff. All right, he can step up, and he can go right after Brissett. You don't have to have him sit back there and watch, 10 throws before he's the one getting into the action. So it's great news, and the progression I think we were hoping for at this point.
Yeah, and that's, and I think the biggest thing for me is that Mayo has come out and said that you're going to earn your spot, that all playing time is earned, and that, there is no depth chart, but the way guys are out there and the way guys are doing things, you're going to earn it to get to that spot. And so to me, that feels significant that he becomes the second person as opposed to the third person. And like you said, we need him to get the reps. He needs the reps. Bailey Zappe does not need the reps. Drake Maye does, right? And so let's get him those reps. He may not pass Jacoby Brissett. I know that there are some people that feel as though he might, and he will. And I think there's a possibility that he might. But it doesn't matter. Whether he passes Brissett or not is irrelevant. He needs as many reps as possible. And so I'm happy to see him in that number 2 spot. I think it's the right move.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting, and I think you hear some of the stuff about his performance. It sounds like he's playing well, and all the people who are at camp are talking about the athleticism, how you could tell he has right away. You go out there, you could tell how high Drake Maye's ceiling is.
Yeah,
which is like, all right, this is the first bar at this point. Is the guy, as advertised? Does he check the boxes? And so far, he does. Like, this is one of the things they talk about with prospects, that sometimes day 1, day 2 of practice, right away, oh, well, this guy is not who we thought he was. And no indication of that with Drake Maye. Further down the depth chart, I think it's hard to tell from an outsider at this point, but it's like, all right, we thought Maye was athletic. We thought he was fast. We thought he was a good runner. We thought he could throw the ball far. He's doing all those things. So that's about all you can ask for there. And he threw 2 picks, but from what I've heard, only one of those was really one for concern. The first time we've heard about him making a bad throw at any point.
True. And I think that's the biggest thing. And you're right. Like, you want to see him being able to do those physical things. What we don't know, right? And Tony Starks asked the question here about, how does he respond to those mistakes, right? Does he compound those mistakes? Does he let that, impact him? And I think that's a good question. And it's something that we don't know yet. And I think that that's kind of the biggest thing that you wonder about. Mentally, where is he, right? Can he handle the adversity that he's going to face? Because all young guys do, all of them, right? And I think that, that's remains to be seen. But you're right in the fact that he steps in and you feel like, okay, this guy is a player. He's got the talent. You can clearly see he has the talent. And I think that, some of the question marks, and we had talked about this anyways, that some of the question marks about him were overblown before the year anyways, going into the draft. I feel like the draft kind of, you're always looking for things and pulling guys apart for no reason. The same exact thing happened to Christian Gonzalez last year. Gonzalez should have been a top 10 pick last year.
Yeah.
And they went through this whole thing about how he wasn't physical and didn't like to play, was going to get pushed around and it was like, what are you even talking about? It didn't make any sense. And he ends up going 17th and listen, he got hurt. He only played 3 games, but in those 3 games, you saw why he should have been one of those guys. He's a physical guy. And he's fast as hell, and so
he's got. What I was rewatching the other day. I threw on that Pats Eagles game, the opener last year, and didn't watch the full thing, but I was just watching, different drives to refresh my memory on some of the stuff that we saw last year. Yeah. One of the plays that I had forgotten was that Christian Gonzalez made the breakup on Devontae Smith on 4th down at the end of that game to give New England's offense a chance to go try to win it. Which that's game 1 against a real good wide receiver. To do that is incredibly impressive. But yeah, you mentioned before some of like the mental stuff and things we can't know. One thing I thought was interesting, I think it was Evan Lazar who pointed it out, was that on some of the plays that, on the stat sheet right now, we're going to go down as not an incompletion, like a sack or scramble or whatever kind of your null plays in training camp where nothing happens. They have noticed that Drake Maye has identified pretty quickly when he wants to scramble and is taking advantage of that, which is something I've been the last couple of weeks I've been going back through all of Maye's college film to rewatch it with closer detail, and that's one of the things I picked up on too. I think one of the strengths that has not gotten enough talk is how good of a runner he is. Not just with his legs, but with his mind. The number of plays I have seen on 3rd down where he drops back, he looks at the coverage, he realizes that it's man coverage and all the defenders' backs are turned, and he immediately steps up for a 7-yard run to move the chain. I mean, I think one of the games I've taken notes over here, it's like three plays on a drive. Like he moved the chains and was able to do that. Like it's incredible. And it seems like he has some of that same awareness right now in camp. I like that, being decisive with it and being able to move the chains, pick up those yards. That's an area where last year they really had issues. So
100%. And that's something to me where you look at it and say, you can teach a guy that. You absolutely can teach a guy that. But if he already has that coming in and you can just build upon what he has there, that's such an advantage for you because it's something that you don't have to, I think one of the hard things for me is that, there's so much stuff going on and there's so many things to learn. And I'm not saying that's a basic skill, but that's not an easy skill to learn. And it's not necessarily part of the offense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if he already has that skill, it's one less thing you have to teach him. Now, again, you're going to have to kind of readjust what he thinks he can do, maybe at times, right? And so maybe on a play that he thinks he can run and maybe he thinks he can or whatever, right? I don't know, right? Maybe he thinks he can run on this play and no, he really can't, So I think that's one of those things that we're going to have to kind of deal with over time. But the fact of the matter is that if he already has that skill, it's one less thing you have to teach him. And again, that's a challenging skill to teach. And so you see some of these young quarterbacks in the league in their third, fourth year still struggling with that. And so if he can do that, pick up on that right off the bat, that's an advantage for me for sure.
Well, and I think one of the things that's nice about him too is that we're talking about like basically asking him to throttle it down.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it's way easier to take a guy like Drake and Maye, and if it's he's 6 games into his career and he's realized, all right, here's a run I can't get away with. I could do it in college, can't do it in the NFL. Right. I think it's a lot easier to learn to that and say, hey, I'm not going to take off in this scenario than it is to try to teach a guy to do that. Like and that was, I think something we saw with Mac at points is he would try to do that and he just didn't have the athleticism to pull it off. And he never really learned, what his actual limitations were because he was trying to do things, trying to write checks that his body couldn't cash. Correct. And I don't think May is going to run into that as often. And I think he is aggressive enough naturally that toning it down probably won't be an issue for him. We'll see. He's a young quarterback and sometimes, just because it's easier doesn't mean that development ever actually happens. See Sam Darnold as a guy who was absolutely an example of that in New York, who I think, if things go poorly with Drake Maye, it might look something like it did with Sam Darnold in New York, just stylistically. But I think that's we got to cross a couple bridges before we're even getting to that point. Let's see how Maye looks at the pads come on, and let's see how he looks in the preseason. And then let's see how he looks in real games. Like that's where we are right now, Matt.
Yeah, 100%. And that's part of it, right? Is that as excited as we are to see it, and as enthusiastic as we are about it right now, we also have to approach it with some realism as well. The fact that he's not going to step in right away and be a day one star and be, an immediate top 5 quarterback. It's not realistic to feel that way. Right. And again, it's possible. We saw CJ Stroud do it last year, I think under a very different set of circumstances in Houston than we have in New England, right? Already had a good offensive line, already had one, well-established, but oft injured player who turned out to be a beast in Nico Collins. And then one rookie who was really, really good and had a great year in Tank Dell. And so, there's a chance, but again, we're not betting on it, right? I mean, maybe, but it's like, let's pump the brakes a little bit,
I don't see Tyquan Thornton having the Nico Collins break.
I don't think so.
If he does, I will be ecstatic. I will eat a lot of words if that happens.
Yeah.
But, and I get there. They're saying he looks decent in camp, which I went back. I was also watching the Steelers game from last year, which the all-22 at that, which was Thornton's best game, I think, which doesn't say much from a production standpoint.
True.
But I get one of the things that stood out was the number of reps he had where he was open and was not targeted.
Right.
And that is a quarterback issue because some of these, like it was kind of clear he was schematically, he was going to be open. You could put Kayshon Boutte out there and he would have gotten open on some of these because it was a scheme thing and the quarterback wasn't getting to him on it, which I think is I think his production has been lower than it should have been in the games where he has been on the field, because there have been some opportunities, but his inconsistency also means there's no trust with the quarterback, which means they're not looking his way, and you got inconsistent quarterback play, and it makes it tough. But you know what? Maybe Thornton does give you something. You know, he's cheap.
Yeah.
He's on the roster right now. If he can be your wide receiver 5 at this point, I think you'd be happy with it.
Well, the hardest part for me is, and we'll get into, of course, now is not necessarily the time, although I'm sure we'll do some, depth chart breaking down and whatnot. But the question becomes, where does Tyquan Thornton fit, right? Because he's not getting a spot over Polk or Baker. He's not getting a spot over Pop. And so then you say, okay, there's 3 guys right there, right off the bat. He's not getting a spot over KB. There's 4. Right? And so then the next question becomes, okay, well, is it Jalen Reagor? Is it KJ Osborne? Right? Is it, some of the guys in the chat are talking about Davis Wallace. I doubt it's going to be Wallace.
That'd be cool. Like, in the videos I saw, he looked quick. He was getting out of breaks in a hurry.
Right. And so you never know. So, of course, now, it's a guy that was cut and so on and so forth. And so who knows? But it just becomes a situation where you say it's a numbers game. And if that's the case, do we look at it and say, is Tyquan Thornton really worth keeping around? And maybe you look at it and say, well, KJ Osborne's fine, but he doesn't have the upside that a guy like Thornton has if you feel strongly about him coming into the season. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I do think the battle for, who the last receiver is on the Patriots depth chart is going to be really interesting, because Tyquan Thornton, a guy that they liked at one point. KJ Osborne, I think, gives you the high floor. He can do all the things that Kendrick Bourne does, probably at around 80% of that ability. So he can be a depth receiver, can fill a lot of roles for you. Isn't going to be dynamic, but is steady. He actually did note that the offensive style they're playing this year, he played in it when he got to Minnesota with the offensive coordinator, whose name is escaping me. But when he was first there, it was a very similar offensive style, and he's familiar with it, which I think helps. Juju Smith-Schuster, who is the most expensive of this bunch and has the best track record of this bunch, if you look at the whole career arc there. And Jalen Reagor, a former first-round pick who contributed at points last year and offers some special teams ability. We'll see if they still like him as a kick returner. But I think that battle, probably primarily between those 4 for the last spot. I think either Kayshon Boutte in the conversation, Hunter Wallace, Kawan Baker. There's a body right now in camp. These are some of the names competing for TJ Luther. I think, is he still around?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. That's when it comes to camp battles. I think that's number 1 I'm watching.
Well, and that's part of it, right? Is that there's so. Well, I mean, obviously, right. But that's really, for me, is the question, like, when you look at it and say, what is it, where's the spot? And I think tackle, of course, right? Because we got to see how the tackle spot plays out. Left tackle primarily is what we care about. Obviously, right tackle, you feel like Michael Money was pretty entrenched there with the contract that he got. But then the question becomes, on top of that, what happens to wide receiver? What happens with, that bottom tier of the wide receiver? So, and I don't know the answer to that question, right? I kind of feel like they have enough guys on the roster that someone's going to get traded, right? That it's not going to just be just straight cut. Now, it might be you might be getting a 6th or a 7th round pick or a late round pick swap or something like that, but
or even swap for a guy who is going to get cut somewhere else,
Yep, right, at a different position or something, right?
Trade for a depth on the interior of the line, or depth at corner, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So,
which by the go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We're talking about KJ Osborne. I was going back through some Patriots history to find the names that reminded me of that. Remember when they had Dontrell Inman? They brought him in 2019.
Yeah.
Maurice Harris was in the same year, and it's like these are guys where it's like, they bring them into camp, and if they make the roster, it won't surprise you, and you can see a way where they would contribute, and also you can see a way where they're cut and they just go somewhere else. That is I feel like Osborne is, probably a tier above a replacement level player, which means he's an NFL player, he's an NFL receiver, should make the team, might get pushed out if guys perform better than we expect.
Yeah,
but he sets the bar.
Well, so just because Yeager's asking about what's about who exactly is in the wide receiver room, and it's a pretty crazy list when you look at it. So it's Jalen Polk, Kendrick Bourne, Pop Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, Javon Baker, KJ Osborne. That's the first 6.
Yeah.
Tyquan Thornton, Jalen Reagor, Juju Smith-Schuster, K1 Baker, TJ Luther, and David Wallace. So they have 12 guys there right now. And so obviously they can't keep all 12. You wonder if a guy like Wallace, Luther, and Baker might be not Javon, but K1 Baker might be guys that end up on the practice squad. Maybe, right?
Yeah.
Or, if Jalen Reagor makes the team, and does Jalen Reagor make the team because he's a return guy? And, if that's the case, does he count as a wide receiver? It's like one of those crazy things where it's like, okay, fine, maybe he ends up, sure, he's technically a wide receiver, but he's really just a return guy. So you keeping 7 wide receivers instead of just 6, right? So, but that's really becomes the question. And then is it like, you're not going to give up the 2 young guys? And then but again, one of the things that we have to think about as well is that guys get injured, right? Attrition happens in camp. Guy goes down, he's out for the year, or someone ends up on the PUP list, and now all of a sudden the guy pops onto the roster we didn't expect. So those are the things that we have to consider as well, right? And I think that's one of the things for me where I look at it and just say, like, hey, let's just see how it all shakes out. And at some point they'll make a move. I think Bailey Zappe should be moved before training camp if you can, because there's no reason to have Bailey Zappe on this team. There's no reason.
There is one semi-defensible, which is that if they think Drake Maye can't be a backup for you yet, if they don't want him to be in that position where if Brissett gets hurt returning to Maye, then maybe you keep Zappe to just kind of absorb those reps so you can keep your succession plan going. But I think we're probably past that point. They might keep Zappe for part of camp, but I don't think you end up. I think he's a straight cut. Like, I don't think you're gonna. Maybe you get like a conditional 7th. But
that's kind of what I was thinking. A late round pick swap. Whatever, Zappe in a 7th for a 6th or something like that. You know what I mean? So, I think that those. And look, who knows, right? But in the situation like you said, if you're keeping him to be a backup because you don't trust Drake Maye as your backup, man, that's bad news. That is, to me, disastrous.
Yeah. Well, and I think the fact that Maye is already in front of him is on the depth chart right now tells you that wouldn't be the case. Right now, the only case where I think you would actually play Zappe over Maye is if they've made an internal decision to say, hey, we like Maye's development. We want to sit him for a year no matter what. And just let him develop and not rush this. If that is their internal philosophy, then fine, I can get on board with that. If that's their philosophy, don't be surprised if there's 4 quarterbacks on the roster with Joe Milton.
No, that's a fair point.
But I kind of doubt that. I think we probably just see Zappe moved in some capacity off this roster by sometime between now and the first preseason game. Maybe they bring him into camp at some point, but when it's real meaningful reps, especially, you get a joint practice against the Eagles, that should really probably be essentially split reps between Brissett and Maye. And maybe you give Milton 5, but you're only looking at 2 guys getting reps for something like that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So, something sparked my, just really quick, and it's just a quick tangent, but about the return game. And it's something I've just been thinking about. Do you want to do an ad read first? You want to do your ad read first, and then we'll do the return? Because I just have something that I've just been kind of ruminating on a bit.
It's a nice teaser.
Yeah. You know what I mean? That's what they call a big market tease in the biz. You know what I mean? So let's do an ad read, and then we will we'll get into just a few thoughts on the return, on the new return system.
The NBA Finals start tomorrow night. I'd love to go see the Celtics fight for Banner 18. Game Time makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Looking for tickets to the finals? Just search for Celtics in the Game Time app to find tickets to all 4 home games, including the opener Thursday night. From there, you can hit Game Time deals to quickly find the best value seats in the arena. You can even use seat views to get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Love it. Absolutely love it. By the way, Pat Stats, don't ever say that again. He said Marcus might be in trouble. Get the hell out of here. Marcus Jones isn't going anywhere. He's going to be an All-Pro again this year, but this time as a cornerback. Come on, let's get serious here.
Marcus Jones is a starter on the depth chart right now, and we haven't
that's not going to change.
Like their depth at corner is not great right now.
No.
I mean, we're counting. Right now. Your top 5 is going to be Gonzalez, Jonathan Jones, Marcus Jones, and then probably Sean Wade and Alex Austin.
Yeah. Well, and you never know what Isaiah Bolden's going to bring. I mean, Bolden I thought was looking good in camp before he got hurt in that preseason game. I think Austin showed quite a bit last year. Now, that spot duty, who knows? We'll kind of see where that goes. But there's some young guys in there that I think is nice. But again, I just think Marcus Jones, when he played corner, played extremely well his rookie year. I thought he played exceptionally well his rookie year. I mean, they put him to one-on-one against T. Higgins, and he got mossed a few times by T. Higgins because he's like 8 inches taller than him, or like a foot taller than him, basically. But, at the end of the day, he played really well against him and played physical against him, and played physical. Who the heck was the tight end that he absolutely smoked? I think it was Arizona. I forget who they were playing. He smoked the tight end coming across the middle. After a catch. And so he's a physical guy. He may not be huge, but he's a physical guy who I think, has a role on the defense, in my opinion. So
his special teams ability too really helps there.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of special teams, here's my take on as they think about the return more and more.
Mm-hmm.
I just think, freaking kick it out of bounds. Kick it out of the end zone. Why not? Why not? Because here's the thing, right? Especially to start the season, it's going to be so new to everyone. It's going to be such a foreign concept to everyone. And we're going to be trying things and so on and so forth. But I think for the defenders, it's going to be so strange for them that I wouldn't be surprised to see a few kick return touchdowns in week 1. And I want absolutely no part of that. No part of that. I'm just kicking the ball out of the end zone if I can. Put Chad Ryland or whoever it is that is your starting kicker that has the best leg, put them back there and just boom that thing out of the back of the end zone and say, take the ball at the 30. We'll give you 5 extra yards. Who cares? Because we were giving you the 25 anyways. Now it's only 5 more yards. Whatever, dude. See you later. Like, I'm not even dealing with it. And then if you're going to kick it to us, hey, we're going to draw plays. We're going to be ready for it. But I'm not even going to give you the opportunity to return the ball. And I understand that, maybe it's a little bit of defeatist attitude, but I just feel like the return team now has the advantage in kick returns. And I don't want that. Right? I want absolutely no part of that. I'm going to kick the ball out of the end zone and take the ball and give them the ball at the 30-yard line, in my opinion.
I think that there is at least some sense to that. I don't know. I hesitate a little bit on it. Like, in some ways I feel like because if you kick it and you land it in that like receiving zone and then it bounces into the end zone, the touchback is at the 20 instead of the 30. So in some ways I almost feel like the best case scenario is some kind of a low driving kick that lands at like the 18, but will be really hard to handle for a returner so that they let it go into the end zone and you can pin them at the 20.
It's not a terrible idea. It's not a terrible idea either.
I also, I think there's There's one benefit here to New England not being expected to be a good team this year, which is that you can experiment with this, and if you lose, who cares?
Right.
So, like, I don't hate the idea of kicking it out of the end zone. I also kind of feel like you would rather take the chance on benefiting from the mistakes of other teams early rather than minimizing your own. If you give up a big play to the Bengals week 1 or like a touchdown, yeah, you were probably going to lose that game anyway.
Right.
If you get a touchdown week 1, well, especially you get a big field position advantage in that one. Like you can turn a game that was, a 10-point spread into a winnable game in a hurry. So I personally think it's worth taking the risk, but we'll see how they play.
Yeah. No, I can totally get it. Right. And James is saying that you want to land it at the 1. And I get all that. Boom it super high, right? And make them return it or whatever the case may be. Right. And see kind of what happens. I like the idea of kicking kind of a low line drive that almost like a squib kick that's going to land inside the 20. Mm-hmm. But like just inside the 20 and then make it difficult for them to field that on the bounce. Because again, it doesn't really matter. You're not asking your players to run down there anymore. You don't have to give them time to run down. You can kick it wherever you want. It doesn't really matter. And so I think that's a fascinating look at it too. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. The more I was thinking about it, the more I'm like, why even mess with it? Who cares? Just kick it out of the end zone. What difference does it make? Give them 5 extra.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. They had originally, I think, had the touchback bringing it out to the 35, and I think that's a slightly different story.
If that were the case, I'm not doing that, right?
The research we have right now, I think, is that the average kickoff is returned to around the 29, and the touchback's at the 30. So, if you kick it into the end zone, you're giving up 1 extra yard in exchange for much lower variance.
Well, I was going to say, and that's 1 extra yard based on the old rules. Now, who knows what's going to be the new rules?
No, right? I think this is based on whatever
the XFL's data
from. They returned it on average to the 20. It was like the 29 point something. So it was even closer to the 30. So it's like, all right, with these rules, typically what we've seen is it's about the same. So just you can play it conservatively, reduce the variance, and always start around where you were going to with no chance of a kick return for a touchdown.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, so again, we'll say I do like your point though, because it is a spot where you can try to make up for some of those. If you're good at it and you develop a plan, you can gain some field position back and maybe win a game that you normally wouldn't have won because of that. Right. And I think that makes a lot of sense. So,
and this is, I mean, they've been apparently playing around with stuff.
Yeah. As they should be, by the way.
I'm pretty sure the Pats Unfiltered guys made a comment that they're playing around not just with how the ball is kicked, but who's kicking the ball. I think is what they said, which I'm glad to see. And even if that's, just trying your kicker and your punter, that's fine. How you kick it, I think, was interesting. I mean, that tells me they're trying line drives. They're going to try the high kicks. They're going to try, pinning somebody in a corner.
Right.
I will say, if the ball goes out of the back of the end zone, though, that's always coming out to the 30. So if you're going to try the strategy I talked about where you try to land it inside the 20 and then have it roll into the end zone, has to stop before the back of the end zone if you want the ball to come out to the 20. I think that's a play you at least try some of the time, depending on how the returners are. And I think having a guy who can handle the ball cleanly is going to be a huge, huge part of this, because I think you're going to see a variety of different kicks. So on the return side, I think having a guy who can consistently catch it will be huge.
Right. That's definitely true. That is definitely true. Also, I think we do. I think we do give credit to the NFL for actually trying something new. That team's I think we do. We have to give them credit for it. And I think we've been asking for something. And again, this is something that we talked about, and I made reference to the Belichick desire to move the extra point back. And again, the reasoning behind that is because it doesn't matter. It was a play that no one cared about. No one cared about a return, because what difference does it make? We're kicking out of the end zone anyways. So what? And so they're changing it, which I think is a good thing.
Do we call it the MFL now? It's the more fun league. It seemed to be voluntarily doing something, that's fun and adding into it, which is
I don't know about that, but I don't know if I go that far, but
it's been a rarity for the league. I'm excited. I'm glad that they did it while consulting like special teams coaches. Like that, they took the initiative on this. decided to do something experimental based on feedback from their coaches to make the game more fun. I have to credit them for it. I think that's something that we have all wanted the NFL to do for a long time, on a consistent basis, and I'll take it.
Right. And Matt makes a good point in the chat that Goodell did new to the kickoff first, moved from the 30 to 35, touchbacks to the 20 from the 20 to 25. So he's got a point, but still, they created the problem. They're trying to fix it.
And credit to that, like they're trying to fix two problems here. One was the sheer amount of injuries relative to other plays you would see on kickoffs, and also making sure this play is relevant and fun in the game and not just, pass and go on the Monopoly board. Like, I'm glad that they're trying to strike a balance here where the players are safe and you're not exposing them to a crazy amount of risk like you were before. And you can do that while also having an entertaining play. If we're going to get some touchdowns out of this, and I'm excited about that. So we'll see how it plays out. But
good point.
I rarely credit the league on things, but they've earned it on this one. So they can take their W on this.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, Pat Stats mentions that Juju's calves appear to be reanimated and he might make it. My dad texted me and then said that Juju was kind of limping around at the end of practice yesterday. I feel like that was something I may have seen. And it's like, we're already doing this.
Well, it's the issue, right? It's not that he can't be healthy, it's that he can't stay healthy the way his knees are, with my understanding of everything, which is tough because in some of the clips I saw, he actually looked like one of the quicker Patriots receivers, which is not something we saw last year. People forget we're not that far removed from Juju Smith being a slot option who could snap off routes and win against defenders over the middle of the field and then make guys miss in space. We're not that far removed from that, and if he could get back to that, awesome. But if he was already limping around, I think can he be good for a play? Sure. Can he be good for hundreds of plays over the course of a season? At this point with his body, I remain skeptical until we actually see that play out on the field.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm not sure what the answer to that question is, but it's tough. It sucks. It does suck. You're right about that. And James, I do definitely have a cold. I'm just getting over it. I literally haven't coughed all day long. Like, I haven't coughed all day. I coughed a little bit. Coughed last night. We had a staff meeting today, and I hadn't coughed literally all day in class, and I coughed the whole staff meeting. And I'm like, what is going on here, man?
You just want the attention.
I haven't coughed since the staff meeting, and now I'm coughing again. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Actually, that's not true. We had a coughing fit at the softball game, but that's it.
You need the Ricola. They got like the lemon flavored ones, which actually tastes so good.
Yeah. The Halls aren't getting it done, man. They're not getting it done. So
gotta get some tea in there too, a little honey.
It's a great point. All things that I need, but that's the way it goes. So
Idris 808 in the chat says Juju Sanu. Yeah, feels a little bit like that right now. Veteran experienced receiver coming in who immediately has injury issues and can't live up to the hype, which has been a pattern here since 2019. It's frustrating, to say the least.
Yeah, it's brutal. That's tough. But I mean, he's not wrong.
No, but we'll see how this plays out. I did. Well, we're talking receivers. From the wide angle clips, I was not super impressed by Jalen Polk. Thought he looked slower than I was expecting him to look, less explosive. And then I saw one of the same clips from the kind of on the field angle, somebody closer to the action. I was like, oh, okay, there it is. Once you're a little bit closer and you can feel it a little bit more, you can see some of the explosiveness. His vertical leap looks great. Going up and catching the ball at the back line was nice. Polk's the kind of guy who you're not really going to see until the pads come on anyway. He's that type of player, but I think we started to get a little bit of a taste of what he can do at OTAs.
I totally agree. And I kind of felt the same way. I was like, I don't know. Like, all right, whatever. And then you see him close, and I'm like, all right, I get it. Now I get it.
Yeah.
So who knows? Of course, there's a long way to go. There's no pads on, but like, at least he looks like a guy that can move, which is good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One, I think, yeah, it's obviously early on. It's tough to tell how athletic anybody is exactly at this moment, how it's going to translate. But from a distance at points, Polk seemed to be in the same tier of athlete as everybody else that was on the field, which I think was a little bit concerning because athleticism has been a question mark for this group for a while. Again, go back to the departure of Brandon Cooks. Like that is the marker on this of when things started to go downhill.
Yeah.
But then up close, I thought there was an athletic difference. Honestly, some of the camp bodies looked a little bit more athletic than I was expecting. So I'm glad to see that. We'll see if it translates to actual production or, chemistry with some of these guys. But yeah, you could see just the lower body for Polk. You could see those, like the thighs and stuff. He was able to generate power and get vertical. Like, that's the strength of his game too.
Agreed. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's do one more ad read, and then we'll talk about a few more things. Oh wait, what do you got?
I had one other receiver point if we want to get on that before we move on.
We can, yeah, sure.
Pop Douglas apparently was showing off. They were saying there was a play where I think Maye found him in the back of the end zone. He caught a touchdown from at least three of the quarterbacks. I don't know if Milton, the degree to which Milton was participating.
Yeah,
but he caught touchdowns from the other three guys in their red zone work. I think Maye compared him to Josh Downs, which I think is something we like to hear with how productive Downs was with Maye.
Yep, that's correct. I agree. Yeah, and again, he's a guy that Downs was his favorite receiver, was the guy that he wanted, the guy that he targeted a ton of times. And so I think that, that's one of those things for me that I'm excited about. I was excited about Pop Douglas anyways. You hear Maye say something like that. And again, that's praise from people, right? Depending on who you're talking to. That's high praise from Drake Maye, who talking about his favorite receiver, right? So I like that quite a bit. So we'll see. But I think you're going to see more of the same of what you saw last year with Pop Douglas. That's what it seems like, at least.
He's a good player when he's out there.
So he is. All right. Yeah. I'm going to try to get through this ad read. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. Hold on. Hold, please.
Now I'm going to cough over here. What has gotten into the show right now? Does somebody in the chat have a cold?
Great podcasting. It's great podcasting right here. All right, here we go. I'm getting to it. Here we go. Prize Picks is America's number one fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It's the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. With Prize Picks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stats projections, and you're locked in. Now, there's always actions on Prize Picks, and this is the perfect time to try something new as basketball season is winding down. Make sure to try out esports this month, because for every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your lineup doesn't win, you'll get your entry fee back. Choose Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more. Now, this week, I'm going Jason Tatum, 25-plus points, Luka Doncic, 25-plus points as well. So download Prize Picks today, put in the code CLNS, and we will do your first deposit match up to $100. Again, Prize Picks, download it, CLNS, $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. My God. I made it.
Oh, yeah. I bought it. For anybody that's just getting the audio, Pat has been losing it with the coughs all episode here. Getting over that cold. Matt Manito in the chat asked if we prefer that they coffin corner. Let me tell you, the coffin corner punt is a lost art. I don't know if you ever played Madden 05. I believe it was Madden 05. Had a coffin corner punting minigame where you could try to punt it and land it in zones.
Impossible.
Right in front of the
impossible. That was impossible, that game.
Yeah, for people who weren't good at it. I had no issues, but
okay. Sorry, man.
I loved that game mode.
That was so much fun.
There are some days where I want to go pick up, an original Xbox and a copy of Madden 05 and just break that out and play it. But the coffin corner punt mode, and that was so much fun, and they need to bring that back.
Yeah, agreed. I agree. So,
yeah. By the way, we got somebody in the chat here, James, suggesting a whiskey mac. Yeah.
Ooh, Scotch whiskey and gin.
Okay. Take the edge off a cold. It's just whiskey usually does it.
I gotta tell you, I don't have any whiskey lying around. But it's worth a shot. I think I'm just gonna gargle some hot water and try not to burn my throat. I mean, this is brutal. My wife has asthma, so she has like a rescue inhaler. So I think I'm gonna take that afterwards, and we'll see what happens. And Mr. Roberto, by the way, is right. The pollen level is super high today, as it has been, I feel like, in the past like 2 weeks, and that's definitely not helping with the cold either. So, is what it is. What do you got? What do you got?
Speaking of video games, by the way, do you know what we haven't talked about on here at all? I don't think.
NCAA 25.
Oh, yeah,
baby. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Yeah, that looks. I was skeptical at first because I didn't know what was going to go into the gameplay for this, and if they were just going to reskin Madden. But it is very clear from everything we have seen that they are. It's a new game from the ground up with a development staff that cares about college football and like a new game part of it, which is pretty sweet. I'm hyped.
That's what you wanted, man. That's what we wanted. That's what we've been asking for. It's not Madden because it shouldn't play like Madden because you're not playing in the pros. You're playing in college, right? And I think I'm excited about it. And again, you can do a lot in Madden, but I feel like part of the problem when you're doing a dynasty, and I like to do dynasties kind of on my own. I like to do the online dynasties too, but I like to do a dynasty on my own and kind of build my own team and stuff.
Yeah.
In Madden, it's like you get to a certain point, you're like, all right, now what? I just got to drop people and try to draft you guys. It's like that happens naturally because it's college. Guys leave, right? And so you got to start over again. And so that part of it, I think, is a lot of fun.
Well, and like with the transfer portal and stuff this year, I think that's going to be interesting because, in NCAA 14, especially once you build up a program, you basically get the good recruits at every single position, redshirt them for a year, let them develop for 2 years, and then it's like a redshirt junior. They finally start and they're a 95 overall for you because they have 3 years of development. And you're not going to be able to do that anymore. The people are going to transfer, which I think is going to make it challenging. Sounds like the way they've done it is going to make it a legitimate challenge to build up a small program into a powerhouse, which I think is going to be fun. I love the new health feature with like body parts getting hurt. I hope that it's implemented in a good way because this could also go horribly wrong. But like, that's kind of fun. Like, there's something nice about like, oh, hey, I just threw a hospital ball to my receiver on a slant, and he took a helmet to the chest. Yeah, he's gonna sit out for a couple plays. And if he gets hit in the chest again, he's gonna be feeling sore. That's how it works. Like, there's a sense of realism there, which I think is a lot of fun.
Well, I think even like, your quarterback. It's kind of like in Madden where it's like, they show the kind of the stamina bars, and it's like the guys, when you're in the formation, the guys will be yellow or they'll be red or whatever. And it's like, okay, you ran the option with your quarterback and he got blasted. All right, he's a little dinged up. Let's call a passing play. Better yet, let's call a running play. Give him the play off, right? Like, call 2 running plays, right? Do the old Brett Favre, right? Brett Favre used to say when he went back to the huddle and his head was spinning, he'd call a run. But give him some time off so you don't get him hurt. Or if you call a pass play, maybe you're not going to now scramble and try to make some crazy throw where you're getting hit, throwing it back across your body. You know what I mean? So it is something interesting. It adds an extra layer of realism to the game that I think is interesting. If you don't want that, I'm curious if there's a way you can turn it off because it does add kind of that extra thought process behind it. But I think that's fascinating for me.
And they talked about too how like the rotations have been changed. So like you'll have guys will sub out more often and for less plays. Like, hey, you give the same running back a carry 4 plays in a row. He's going to go to the bench for 1 play, 2 plays, and then he'll come back in, which is how it works in real football. Instead of, Madden right now, you can use the same running back for like 25 runs in a row, and then he'll go to the bench and you won't see him for a quarter or 2. And like, that's not how football works.
Right.
So it seems like they tweaked that. very, very. I'm gonna spend way too much time playing that game when it comes out. I've already apologized to my girlfriend. I told her I'm not. You're not gonna see me for a week. Like, just been waiting a decade for this. I'm gonna take some time.
I think my most recent Madden is like Madden 23 or something like that. I just have no interest in buying it recently, and so 23, 22. I don't remember. 22, 23. Doesn't matter either way.
The Maddens come on Game Pass. Anybody who has Xbox, they come on that after the Super Bowl every year, like the week before the Super Bowl, something like that. So it's a nice. That's what I do because it's like, okay, I basically can always play a Madden that's a year old at any point, which is nice when I got my fix and I got to go play like one season or something. I will say, I don't think Madden today is awful. I think the gameplay has improved. I think one of the main issues with Madden today is that the menus are awful. You try to play franchise and it takes 5 minutes to tab through things, and like it's glitchy, and also they don't give you that much information. Like you can't there's no easy way to be like, hey, let me go see hey, what's the transaction history on this guy? Who drafted him? Did he get traded? Like, did he get cut? You can't do that with any players. They just kind of they don't give you a lot of information, and it's hard to access, and all the menus stink, and customizability options aren't good. So Madden feels like it also needs a complete teardown and build back up.
I agree. Matt, by the way, is on fire tonight. Not you, Matt. This Matt. Very mad.
Thanks. I'm not on fire. Yeah.
You're also on fire. You're always on fire. Doesn't count. So, all right, listen, we got to get the hell out of here before I die on camera. Thank you for coming along, people. We didn't do a finals preview. Celtics in 6 is my prediction.
I guess Celtics in 5.
Ooh.
I
think Celtics in 5 too, but I'm scared to say it, so I say Celtics in 6 instead.
I think the Mavs are a good team, but I also think they benefited greatly from getting a Timberwolves team that overperformed against the Nuggets and then came back down to earth against them. The Mavs were not the best team in the West this year. They're the 5 seed for a reason. Their depth scoring is an issue, and their defenses, they have not been able to guard the Celtics when they've played them this year. Celtics are fully healthy, a better team, a bad matchup for Dallas, and I think it's personal too, which ups the stakes a little bit. And it's no hate to Dallas; they've had a fantastic season, but I think this is a really they don't have anybody who can guard Brown or Tatum.
I agree. Thad, by the way, you're out of here, Thad. Mavericks and 7. Get out of here. No, Matt, have fun at the other Matt Menino. Have fun at the Twins Yankees game tomorrow. Hopefully the rain will hold up. That'll be fun. So, but anyways, we'll see what happens. It's gonna be fun. If it goes to Game 7, I'll be in Disney World watching Game 7. So that would be interesting.
Game 3 is the same. Yeah, Game 3 is the same as the same night as the Brady thing, I think.
Yep.
That's
so
brutal.
We'll see how that goes. But it is what it is. I'm gonna miss it. So what? So more important.
Yeah.
So, anyways, thanks guys. Appreciate you, and we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you next week.
Are we doing
Monday?
What's our schedule? Yeah,
I would think Monday, Thursday, right?
They play Thursday next week. I'm pretty sure.
No, they play Wednesday because that's the Brady thing.
Oh, is it Wednesday, Friday?
I'm not sure. It doesn't matter.
Right.
We're gonna do probably Monday, Thursday. I would think.
Okay. Days the Celtics aren't playing next week.
Bingo. All right. See you guys.